Hello, everybody, and welcome to this live stream about Re.Pack. Today with me is Jakub Romańczyk. Jakub, nice to see you.
Hello. Hi, nice to see you as well, Mike.
And I'm Mike, CTO and founder at Callstack. Kuba works with me as well, and obviously he's a software engineer at Callstack, but most importantly for today's live stream, he is a Re.Pack maintainer. So Kuba, maybe for those of the viewers that see you for the first time, how did you start with Re.Pack? Like, how did you even get interested about it? Because I think you are the person behind its second life, and I mean it. By second life, I mean it's sort of a growth on the wave of Module Federation and RSPack. So I think it would be great to learn what brought you here, and ending up with today's live stream.
Yeah, that's a good question actually. Yeah, because it's been already quite a long time. I think my first encounter with Re.Pack, I remember at my previous job, I watched like a conference talk about Re.Pack from Zamatani, the previous maintainer and the creator of Re.Pack, and that already got me interested because Callstack was kind of interested in exploring such exotic ideas like creating another bundler, because that's like not a very popular effort. So unless there's like a specific goal behind that, then that wouldn't really happen. But yeah, when I arrived at Callstack, I think it was like a project for a client that we were working on, and I was given a task to develop a feature in Re.Pack, and that's how we got here somehow. One thing led to another. Then RSPack came along somewhere along the way, and yeah, here we are today.
Yeah, I think one tiny detail that you didn't tell people, and these are one of those bonuses you get when you join early, is how we met, I think, at the airport, right? I think we haven't met, or did we meet before that? I don't think we met before the meeting at the airport, right?
I think you're referring to my brother, actually.
Oh, maybe. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I got
we met at the App.js, actually, first time in
Maybe,
person. Yeah, but yeah.
But he's quite similar, actually. Anyway,
that explains it. We're kind of similar, yeah.
Yeah, now I remember. Kuba has a brother, by the way. We were saying hi to him, and one day I'm standing in the line at the airport, and he starts talking to me about go-karts because I liked racing, and then he says that his brother works with me at Callstack, and then I started connecting the dots. But anyway, blame on me. It's midnight here in Hong Kong right now. I'm calling from Hong Kong, which is pretty crazy. I should be sleeping now, but we're here to talk about fun stuff. So today we want to talk about Re.Pack 5.1, and I think we can definitely go through this list of things that are new in Re.Pack 5.1. But I think before we go that route, I think we should perhaps spend a minute or two on Re.Pack itself and what it really does, and features like Module Federation that we will talk about. What are they, and how they even help? Now, I will try to find and pull up a nice diagram from Super App Showcase. In the meantime, because I'm sure you have like plenty of answers, like you get those questions quite a lot, I guess.
Yeah, totally. Surprisingly, when people ask me what Re.Pack is, I feel like this is like the most non-stable question over the years. Like the answer just keeps changing all the time, and right now we settle on like for a modern toolkit that allows you to introduce Module Federation into your React Native application, or somewhere along these lines. I don't really remember the logo that we have in our documentation, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, it's historically, it was there to enable code splitting in React Native apps. But these days, code splitting is not as important unless you go a little bit further with that and you try to introduce micro frontends. That's where code splitting still shines. And utilizing the Webpack ecosystem and these days also RSpack, we can move the features that these bundlers have onto the React Native code base, because the default bundle Metro is not really suited for that, at least not yet. Yeah, that's pretty much what Re.Pack does. There's also like tree shaking and what else? And like plugging different tools like plugins or loaders from the ecosystem to do some modification to your project files before you build. But yeah, these days mostly you go into Re.Pack for module federation.
Yeah, that's why I sort of pulled up this diagram in the meantime. I figured it would be helpful, but I didn't want to interrupt you. I think this will probably make sense for the first time when you see it, and I'm actually fairly up to date on this one because I was just telling some people about this today. So as you can see on the left side, you have the host application, which is the mobile app typically with some kind of UI, and then in the middle you have your mini app interaction. Actually, Kuba, correct me if I'm wrong. That is just loading the module, right? Or that interaction is supposed to. Okay, now I think I know. In the middle, what we have is an actual mini app loaded inside the host app, right? And on the right side, we have a standalone app, right? So, so as you can see, this is pretty good. This is pretty good breakdown of why module federation is so cool. Today, I came up with this very, very, I think, simple way to understand it, which is with bundle splitting, you had to split your application at the build time, and you could not swap the chunks later on because it was all tightly coupled together. And module federation is like bundle splitting, with the difference that you can swap and build those chunks totally standalone. And as you can see on the right side, the booking app can be a standalone application with just the booking module, or can be a tab as a part of the main application as well. So pretty convenient. I think, Kuba, maybe this is the diagram for you. Like, this is the master class of diagrams. I think the idea here was to show the things that are in common across different things, but maybe you can briefly break this down for us, and we'll drop the link to this showcase in the notes as well, in case you want to play around with it. Just clone it and put it up. But I was curious if you could maybe walk us through this diagram real quick, and then we can jump to Re.Pack 5.
Yeah, sure thing. So the different colors, the different colors on the outside, symbolize different apps from where the modules are coming from, and the actual squares inside represent the actual components or different sorts of modules that are used within those other apps, right? So this kind of shows you how you can compose stuff from other apps into other ones, right? Because you don't need to put just mini apps into the host ones. The mini apps can also depend on other mini apps, right? It can go on and on and on, and there's literally no limit. I think even circular inclusions are also supported, but it's always with circular dependencies that's not really recommended yet. But that's the gist of it. And the left part of the diagram kind of symbolizes the apps that are inside of one monorepo, and on the right side we also have one extra mini app that's outside of the main monorepo to show that whatever your setup might be, it can be supported, and there is no limitation in doing so.
Yeah, that's
the gist of it, at least. Yeah.
Thanks for explanation. That's pretty cool. And then here you have a breakdown of every feature in case you wanted to sort of get started, how you can get started with it, and some nodes. So I'd recommend checking this out later on if you want to sort of get started with it real quick. So now I think with that in mind, we just covered what is Re.Pack, how we started working on it, and what is Module Federation. Now, the biggest challenge with Re.Pack, when I remember always pitching the previous version of Re.Pack called Whole, was the performance, right? I mean, everybody was happy with the features of Webpack, but people were not necessarily happy with the performance of it, especially compared to something such as Metro, which is in principle made specifically for React Native. So it will yield a better performance when you compare it with Webpack. And that's what the excitement about RSPack is, and that's what comes with version 5. So I think before we go to 5.1, we can quickly go through the 5, just for those of you who are new to it. And I will Kuba quickly try to find your tweet because I remember it on Twitter as we walk it through. But I'm sure you know everything outside of the box.
Yeah, sure.
Anyway.
You go on, look for it, and I'll try to brief everybody on the Re.Pack 5. So Re.Pack 5 was a big rewrite of the whole thing because we wanted to introduce RSPack, which is like a Webpack rewritten in Rust with around 5 times or even more performance gains, right? So but you know, just switching to RSPack was kind of the easy part, but we also needed to support SWC for transpilation to really, you know, use all of that things that RSPack brought with it, since it has like native support for SWC under the hood, where it can also be nicely parallelized, and all of that comes together. Because before we experimented with SWC just for transpilation, and for example in Webpack that only gave you around 15% increase in binding speed. So around at that time when we tried that prototype, we knew that this isn't definitely the whole game when it comes to bundle performance. But yeah, RSPack and performance is just one thing. There's also support for Module Federation 2. And we supported Module Federation in Re.Pack since version 3 officially, but that never really took off. Mostly because the API was cumbersome and there was a lot of limitations that were really complex, and going forward they would only build on that complexity, and it was very easy to get lost in this kind of mess that you could make with your app. But then Module Federation 2 came along, somewhere around, not very long after the RSPack came into play. And yeah, we've been working on supporting that ever since. We're still working on it, actually, and that's what mostly 5.1 release was about. But yeah, Module Federation 2 removed a lot of limitations that we previously had, and at this point we already thought that this was acceptable, and we can like move forward with the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, I think one thing to worth mentioning or picturing. I remember this when I first looked at it was like improvements around the sort of import syntax, right? So before you would have to use the federated module explicitly to sort of load remote module, and now you could use just an import. In this case, they're still using the sort of classic API, if we can call it this way. But I think it is like one of the selling points, at least for me, with the Module Federation 2, at least, was the support for import syntax. Is that one of the things that? Oh yeah, here we have it. Anything else that you sort of feel is worth highlighting here for the viewers?
Yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah, that import syntax is finally supported. Yeah, before we needed to have like custom APIs, so to make it work. But right now, the out-of-box solution for our Re.Pack with our little wrapper on top of it works just as well. So we can support the standard import syntax that you can also use in Metro.
Yeah.
But just for the development, yeah, just to clarify that.
Yeah. This is pretty nice. I mean, working with module federation, once you have this, becomes much easier for people to grasp. At least, today I was showing this very same concept to a group of React Native engineers, and the fact that React Lazy works with it, and then there's an import, async import. Like, these are the things that make it immediately familiar if you're sort of using this. So that is a pretty cool feature.
And it looks exactly like on the web, right? So
Yeah.
like no changes when you're coming from module federation on the web. It just looks exactly the same.
Yeah.
The configuration is also pretty much the same in the Re.Pack config or the Webpack config.
Yeah, I think question for you is where's React Native in the sidebar?
Yeah, we're still working on that. Yeah, because right now Re.Pack is just this part that's supported, but there's like still a lot of custom stuff. But hopefully that will change in the future. Looking forward to that. Yeah, especially with the support for module federation coming to Metro soon. I hope so.
Yeah, that will be awesome. I mean, even today when I was talking about using actually structuring your app as a super app, it is an architectural decision, right? And so when we start from scratch, we have a big project up ahead, and we cannot really I mean, we can, but it is a tough decision to be made at the very beginning of the project, whether you go with Re.Pack or Metro. If you cannot fall back to Metro back later in case you hit some issues, then it becomes sort of a very hard decision. So all right, so we have it covered. There is a couple of scenarios here, but I think we can go back to the primary reason for our or for today's stream, which is what's new in Re.Pack 5.1 and why you should all be excited. Well, first of all, you should all be excited for the new Callstack website. I hope everybody likes it. It's beautiful. I love reading it, and now that I'm happy that with the new website we gained new readers because Jakub, you decided to migrate your blog to our blog, which is a testament that we're doing pretty good job. So that's great.
We need to redirect the old blog to the new one, but yeah, working on that.
By the way, as we were doing this live stream, I hated this. Today, believe me, I woke up 7 a.m. like this, and I'm like, oh my God, I need to check Google Analytics, because when we were changing the Callstack's website 4 years ago, we did some basic mistakes with the SEO and optimization, and then the organic search and traffic immediately went down because there were some issues. So I woke up in the middle of the night. I'm like, I have to check it because I have some bad feelings about it. Luckily, not the case today, but I just found out a wrong redirect or a missing redirect from the Super App Showcase to a Super App development page, which does not exist, the link. So we have to fix it. So we'll fix it. We'll do the blog redirects too. Yeah, so maybe let's start. Re.Pack 5.1. So very, very quickly after 5. If you're following Semver, I'm guessing there's new features, which is what we're gonna talk about today. So walk us through and let's dive in. We got 3 features in the title, but maybe there's more. So let's start.
Sure. So the biggest feature, the most important one at least, because the 5.1 release was supposed to be centered around OTA updates, right? So we wanted to introduce features that will actually bridge the gap between existing Re.Pack APIs and actually configure more stuff for you, so you don't have to use the lower level APIs like ScriptManager, right? We only want you to use ScriptManager when you absolutely need to, but for the most cases, we have like nice runtime plugins for module federation, which already take care of the most setups for it. And one thing that was missing from the release, Re.Pack 5 release, was that there was no support for preloading of the remotes. So the use case for that was that you could prefetch some of the assets beforehand during the runtime, cache them onto the local storage, and then which is located on the device. Then you could restart the app and actually instead of fetching them at runtime and updating the mini apps, you could just have them ready from the cache, right? Which is generally the gist of how OTA updates work these days. Yeah, that's exactly what we did, and now using the official Module Federation 2 API to do that, which is great because we don't have to write another page of custom documentation for it. The goal is to reuse as much as possible from the official Module Federation API, and Re.Pack just should stay on the bundle side of things, right?
Cool. So, what's funny is today I was having this meeting, and the first thing that I got asked about super apps and Re.Pack was OTA, specifically, can we invalidate a module when something wrong happens, such as, say there is a security vulnerability and we have to ship an update. And I was like, not entirely sure that we had a fully available API for that, and it is exactly that. So it's pretty cool that we have this supported out of the box. So quick question I have here: the preload remote is obviously preloading a mini app from the remote server. In this case, I'm guessing this is the name of what could be from the showcase a booking module or something, and then the resource category sync. What is that? What is that standing for?
That is more of a technicality actually, but we didn't want to modify the official API in a sort of way. Generally, the resource category is about type of assets that are produced when you are splitting your bundle with Module Federation. Sync bundles are kind of, you could say, they're kind of like required, like exposed modules from Module Federation. So, for example, components that are counted as sync, and same as eager shared dependencies. So, and the async ones are kind of those that can be kind of reused from host, if that makes sense. So because sometimes the files are emitted from the compilation, but they are not really needed, thanks to the sharing module sharing system of Module Federation, right? So if you have like a Lodash dependency in your host app, and the mini app also depends on the Lodash, if the Lodash is already present in the host app, as long as that's the configuration, you don't ever need to fetch that Lodash from the other app, right? So that's why the Lodash from the other app counts as async module, because it's not really required, because it might come from other place. Maybe that's the best definition for it.
Mm-hmm. I get it. I mean, that makes sense to me now. I was coming up with a different understanding of that model, because I'm finding those names quite confusing sometimes, which is probably the only reason for that is in React Native realm or world, we don't really use namings like this. But yeah, that makes sense. I guess we will have to come up with some examples around that later on. But coming back,
I guess you would just one question actually here, because I guess you would kind of figure that async would just mean that sync is already like synchronously loaded, and probably async is just like coming from over the network, right? Or something like this.
Sorry, could you repeat once again? I
was kind of
heard
wondering
of the
what was...
annoying TV that was flashing my face all the time.
Yeah, no worries. I was kind of just wondering what was your understanding that you actually had developed.
Oh,
yeah.
What I was thinking was that that was totally stupid, which was only because I misunderstood the exposes utility. It was basically that I assumed that there were chunks that were required to be loaded synchronously because actually I don't even know how to explain it anymore, which I'm guessing is the evidence for that variant to be totally incorrect. Anyway,
Right.
typically the sync is the default, so I guess to make it very easy, we can just assume that what we said in what we said, the name or alias is probably the thing that you're mostly interested in.
If you care most about reuse of the dependencies, then yeah, you just go with resource category sync, yeah. Because it will do the least amount of overfetching.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. And then we have an alternative. So it's interesting to me that there is no API in the runtime for invalidation, but there is for preloading. And for invalidation, we have to use the script manager. Is this something that is specific to React Native world, which required script manager, and module federation specification didn't foresee that on the web? Or what is the sort of rationale behind that API?
Yeah, that's actually a good question, because on your mobile, we actually can cache something on the device, and kind of, if our app is there, we can kind of count on it being untouched, right? Mm-hmm. So on the web, module federation is like, every time you reach out to different sources to actually compose the final module federation app together, right? So it's not very common practice to do some like storing of the federated modules in the local storage, for example, right? Mm-hmm. But for mobile, we actually can have apps that are fully offline mode, right? And with offline mode, you kind of want to skip the fetching part and have everything ready at your disposal on the device, right? So yeah, that's why we need to resort to using script manager here to actually take to enable more use cases on the mobile side of things.
Yeah, that is that is pretty cool. And so just going through this API for a second. We have, so I'm guessing the fact that we have script manager.shared, is that only an API nuance to articulate it's a singleton, or script manager itself is a class? Why did you design it with the .shared in first place?
Actually, funny thing, it's both. So it's both a class and it's both a singleton. So why it is the way it is? We just built upon what was already there, to be honest. So it's been like in an unchanged state from Re.Pack 3, and for the compatibility reasons, we didn't want to modify that. And since we are moving away from using script manager for every sort of thing, then we just want to keep this API compatible and just handle script manager calls behind the scenes for you, right? So
yeah, that makes sense. So I think we can make a quick detour from reading, because we have a question on Twitter, which I'm not sure, because that
nice.
question is very long. I'm not sure if it will fit into our beautiful layout here, but I'll click it anyway, and then our great producer Ola will be not happy about it, but I'll read it because it's very cool. And thanks, Anton, for asking. Oh, it is actually designed. I'm surprised because previously it was popping like crazy. So does Re.Pack mainly make sense for greenfield projects? Or do you have a sales pitch or some FAQ on why and how someone should implement it within a large enterprise monorepo that has multiple React and React Native clients? So it's a very good question. I have like a lot of things to talk about here and to show. Jacob, you wanna start, or should I take this one? Something comes to your mind from your client work?
Maybe I'll start with the thing that actually Re.Pack 5 is kind of designed in mind to be like a drop-in replacement with Metro, and we are like still closing the gap. And when it comes to adopting Re.Pack instead of Metro, it has really become easy to just drop in. And before you start getting into module federation stuff, like replacing Re.Pack with Metro is actually quite straightforward these days, and I hope in the next minor release we'll make it even less troublesome. So we think it might actually create like this potential to be adopted even in brownfield projects, right? Or even existing projects that have already used Metro for so long, right?
Yeah.
If there is a use case for it.
I can say a few things here as well from my perspective. So it obviously makes sense for the greenfield projects because it requires you to think about how you structure your code, right? So today I was on a meeting where we were talking about how super apps structure and architecture can help you ship faster, but the problem was it requires a certain architecture to be present in the first place. And when we start new project, whether it's greenfield or brownfield, for the React Native part, we need to come up with a set of foundation elements and architectures that we'll stick to. And the answer whether we go with this architecture or the other architecture is actually a very important one at this stage. So for the brownfield projects or for larger projects, I think from my perspective, there is and there is a few things that are worth keeping in mind. Even if your application is not a super app, adapting that architecture, in my opinion, together with a few other tools we have in our umbrella, such as Brownfield and RNF, but focusing on the Re.Pack for now in module federation. Adapting that in a brownfield project or a large React Native application, even if you don't really have a super app, is actually a added value in a way that it improves your release velocity at scale. It is more scalable architecture, so to say, in a way that, like I said at the beginning, to me the ultimate sales pitch is that, and I see this quite often in those big applications, the biggest selling point is that you can ship those modules independently from each other. The teams can be decoupled. The teams can have independent release cycle. And like I said at the beginning, in order for you to use Re.Pack, you need to have this architecture in place. Like in the Super App Showcase, there needs to be a host, there needs to be a mini app, and there needs to be a communication protocol across them, and dependency management, all sorts of different things. And thanks to that requirement, thanks to the fact that you have to have those things in place, when you start adapting module federation and Re.Pack at scale, you automatically implement an architecture that is scalable and that enforces certain practices for your organization, because otherwise you cannot really use Re.Pack and module federation. So to me, the biggest benefit is just being able to ship faster and being able to ship more. And I'm going to drop you a link in the chat where we have a bit more of FAQs and a bit more of information on using Re.Pack in that case which might be helpful. So I will drop it in here, and hopefully that helps and answers your question. So I'll do it actually right now. All right. So we have another question, which is related to Script Manager. So I pulled that up when I write in the chat. So first of all, looks like we're doing good job, which is great. The fact that our impromptu live session is presentation is, I think, we're getting our job done here. So can we invalidate? And this is also a question that I heard lately. Can we also invalidate scripts from a server that's serving the module, or do we always need to have a listener? I will show the script bug again, or do we always need to have this listener here to support invalidation? And if not, the reason is, it's a follow-up question in the chat, but I'll just stick to showing this one, is we forgot to put those in, or we need to force it from the server. Like I said, there is a security issue that we need to implement it immediately. Maybe these are edge cases, Jacob, but like how should we even think about those in production?
I mean, right now you need to trigger the invalidation like in the app, right? So you can do that remotely, but you can easily write a wrapper on top of it that you keep a connection to a server, perhaps a WebSocket or something else. Maybe it doesn't need to be WebSocket, and you could always trigger this remotely, right, for the user, if there is like this critical situation that needs handling, right?
Yeah,
but we don't provide like anything on top of that. We just Script Manager is like this low-level API that allows you to like modify the files, the bundle files on the file system, right? But if you want to introduce extra functionality, you have to do it yourself, pretty much.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Jacob, actually about it, because I think, and by the way, I think it's worth reaching out to Zephyr Cloud for being super good stewards of this of module federation. But I think it's fair to say that a lot of these features are actually provided by Zephyr Cloud, right? And while it may not be a solution to everybody because of the fact that it's a SaaS product, it is showing you that there is a missing place where either you go with an existing third-party provider, or you have to sort of bring this architecture on your sort of own. Cool. Okay. I'm just dropping, by the way, on Twitter, because that first question was asked on Twitter regarding the FAQs. I just pasted, I'll paste it here as well. I just pasted 3 links to our website where you can, if you scroll down to the FAQ section, you will see there is some questions and answers for things why Re.Pack, why module federation at scale, etc., etc. So some sort of resource that you may find relevant. Okay, so going back to this article, let's go to the next one. Hooks for Script Manager. It's interesting. So
we're only at the second feature, right?
Yeah. So tell me what's that? And I would like, I see we have like so much interesting code here as well again. So I'll just let you briefly introduce it, and I'll try to locate a corresponding snippet that will describe this feature.
Right. So as I said before, with Re.Pack, we want you using Script Manager as least as possible, right? That's a low-level API. In most cases, you shouldn't need to even touch it. But for those advanced use cases, when there is like no other way to do other things, you kind of need to use it. And we wanted to configure a lot of stuff for you with Module Federation 2. Before Re.Pack 5, we had like this situation where in your entry point on your application, which is usually like index.js, you would need to configure ScriptManager at runtime and actually create this sort of configuration that Module Federation already does for you, but we needed to opt out of it because it wasn't compatible with React Native before, right? And in Re.Pack 5, most of the stuff, in this case, resolvers are configured for you. So our runtime client, which is ScriptManager, knows how to resolve these modules at runtime, because it is still like the underlying layer which handles the files and modules before it goes directly into the JS engine like Harris, right? So hooks kind of introduce a mechanism like an escape hatch for those situations when you would need to rewrite most of the stuff that we have in our presets for you. It's mostly about the not having to overwrite the Module Federation runtime plugins that kind of reconfigure the Module Federation runtime to suit React Native needs.
But one question to you, why is like, and again, I think that the same question that as I had before is, if this is so much needed, why isn't there an official API in Module Federation? I'm guessing it is something specific to Re.Pack or React Native in this case, or mobile world. So I'm just curious. You know, I'm looking at this snippet and it makes a lot of sense to me from what it does. But my question is, why is it, or maybe it's just done differently on the web, and we wanted something faster, easier, and more out of the box, which is also a fair answer. So I think, yeah, if you could maybe expand it a little bit on that as well.
Yeah, sure. The question, in essence, is why do we have like something like ScriptManager in place at all, right? That's
Yeah,
what the
and
question
then the
is really
hooks,
about.
but yeah.
Yeah. So Re.Pack architecture kind of creates this distinction where modules can come both from the file system of device and from a remote source outside, right? So for Module Federation on the web, they like always come from the remote source outside of the app itself, right? But in Re.Pack, that's not really the case. So that's why we have this layer in between, right, to handle stuff.
True.
And this architecture has been present in Re.Pack from its beginning, I believe. It was here even before I started working on it. So
it precedes you.
Yeah, exactly. I think before in Re.Pack 2, it was called Chunk Manager, and then it got renamed to Script Manager, you know, to show how versatile it is. And that's how it still is there today, because we still need this sort of interrupt layer between different file systems, you could say, like remote file system and the on-device file system.
Yeah, that is honestly perfect answer to me. I think it is now pretty obvious. Although, yeah, I mean, the local versus remote distinction is something that will be extremely hard to provide on the web, because there is no meaning of the local unless we're talking about, I don't know what, preloaded somewhere maybe offline. But yeah, pretty good stuff. So I guess if we were thinking about doing Module Federation for desktop, we could think about having similar API there as well, because we can have some modules pre-bundled, right? And some modules we can have from the remote.
Exactly.
All
you
right.
could, for example, create an app like where you already have like some versions of the mini app shipped with it, right? And just, you know, in case the network load fails, you could always reach out to the local file system and load those instead, right? So you're doesn't matter if the user is online or offline, there'll always be something to show to the user, right?
Yeah, that is pretty cool. That is pretty cool. And then I guess the hook here, a verified script signature, like just an example, but it's probably you know, specific to the loading. So another one we have here is actually, you know, advanced, but you're selling this as a very good solution, like a super tool, and I mean it is pretty cool. And so in this case, I'm guessing we're modifying the retrial behavior in case there's some issue with loading, right? And then we're clearing the cache so it will be always fresh each time. Is that how this should be read?
Kinda, yeah, exactly.
Okay, sounds good.
So why this might be needed in the first place, because before you could only create a resolver in one place, which we already kind of did for you in Module Federation 2. We kind of configure all of that for you. But in some cases where you, for example, wanted to add code signing, you would kind of need to edit the signature of that script, which in this case is called the locator, right?
Yeah.
So in the second example, for example, we modify the values of retry or retry delay. And before, if you wanted to do that, you would essentially have to go into Re.Pack code base, copy over the runtime plugin for the module federation, and then kind of introduce these changes there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was very cumbersome, not very practical. And with hooks, you can just tap into those parts of the script loading process from anywhere in your code base, and adjust it to your needs. And it's also possible to shoot yourself in the foot with it because it's such a versatile tool that allows you to do pretty much everything you want.
Yeah.
So
honestly, this is as close to Webpack API as it gets. Those hooks, befores and afters. I remember tinkering with the first Webpack APIs. That was pretty much it. All right, and then
there's actually like a quite truth to it because it's all based on the tappable library, which is like the heart of Webpack. So
yeah,
we just slightly modified the hooks so they don't have like this, dot tap functions and adding like a name for the plugins because it didn't really make sense. Yeah, we simplified it slightly so that you can care about actually achieving the desired behavior and not spending decades understanding how Webpack works actually. So
exactly. I mean that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. And then we have well, the ScriptManager API documentation. I'm feeling like we need another live stream or maybe even an hour more to dive deeper into that. So we might leave this for later. I would love to do it.
Since it's advanced API, you might not always need it. So it's better left, for those cases where you need it, it's there. So
exactly. Cool. So then we have experimental persistent cache support, which is a RSPack feature. So my first question is, does it mean this cannot be used with Webpack? And then just actually whether we use Webpack or Re.Pack, looks like we got you covered. So Jakub, just tell us a bit more about that and why should we be excited about it?
So that's a very good question that you ask because it was already present in Webpack. It just wasn't configured out of the box for you, right? And there was no mechanism to reset the cache like in Metro is. Many of you are probably familiar with how you start React Native Dev Server, and some of you hard code the -- reset cache flag into it because of some caching troubles in the past. But I believe it's much in better place these days. So. But yeah, we had no support for that, so there was no way to invalidate the cache, the build cache, and now we introduced that, and we wanted to like introduce a preset into the configuration that would just like Metro configure out of the box, configure that out of the box for you, so you don't really have to think about it. It's actually quite the saddest feature of the morning here because just before, like 2 days before the release, we actually decided to put this behind the experimental flag, we wanted to turn it on by default, but in 5% of the scenarios, we actually run into issues where RSPack would get into deadlocks, and we'll be working with the RSPack team to actually resolve that. And probably in the next minor version, we'll just remove the flag and enable that by default.
Nice.
And this is like a really cool feature to have, because at first your compilation, even with RSPack, might take like 3 to 5 seconds. But if you enable persistent caching, then the next startup will only take like 500 milliseconds or something. So as you can see actually in that table, we did test that on our super app showcase, and maybe you could zoom in a little bit on that table. Oh yeah, we did try it also on Expensify. You can see that the cold startup in Expensify was around, for a single platform build, was around 10.5 seconds, and with persistent cache turned on, it takes just like 1.4 seconds, and everything is ready almost instantly for you. So across the board, it's 87% reduction in the startup time. So
yeah, these are pretty cool numbers, actually.
Yeah, and it's very consistent as well along the board, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, that's pretty cool. Yeah,
you got that out of the box with Metro, right? So we to bridge the gap, and to not rely on the sheer speed of RSPack and do code bit every time. We wanted to finally enable that by default.
Yeah.
But we'll probably do so in a not so distant future. So it's gone.
Cool. But then we have full support for package exports imports. We didn't make it to the title of the blog, I guess, but it is pretty exciting, at least to me, because I'm always a huge fan of those. So that is, as far as I can see, just tracking the features inside Metro to align with what's inside Metro, because we had it for a while.
Pretty much, yeah. It's just bridges the gaps, fixes the issues, and now it's like almost one-to-one aligned with Metro, which means that we tested it on a few client projects of ours, and finally with the release of 5.1, they were able to use package export without the hitch, just like in Metro. So it's something that it's a feature that.
Oh yeah, sorry. Go ahead. I'll ask later.
Just one last word about that. Yeah, it's a feature that we want to make transparent. So when it works, it just works, and you don't have to think about it. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, why did you decide? So previously you were tracking the features inside Metro and sort of aligning and pinning to what was available in Metro. And here I can see that you decided to diverge a little bit to give Re.Pack users a bit more room to adapt. So I guess I wanted to ask, where is that coming from? Do you see, or do you have like different feedback from, I don't know, maybe people working with Re.Pack, or this is somehow related to how Re.Pack does this under the hood? Just curious about this this difference here.
Yeah, that's also a very good question, actually, because there's a slight difference how Metro versions are released and how Re.Pack versions are released, right? Metro versions are usually tied to one specific version of React Native. So with each release of React Native, you kind of also get the bump in Metro version. But in Re.Pack, it's not really tied to any Re.Pack version. We officially state that we support current version and 2 previous ones, just like the React Native core does. So we need to take into account that the lowest denominator, which in this case is React Native 77, doesn't have package exports enabled by default. So we need to align with that. And after we move 2 versions forwards, when the last supported version will be React Native 79, then we'll try to enable package export by default.
Nice.
That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I mean, I have So many questions about like the API design as well, but I guess we'll get to it later at some point. And then we have two new exciting features in the Re.Pack ecosystem, the React Native Enterprise Framework from Callstack, and the hot updater. So Jacob, what are you guys cooking in the Enterprise Framework, and how you see it being part of the family there?
Oh, it's just RNF is just a very nice replacement for CLI these days. So it was obvious that since we are developing it, we need to provide first-class support for Re.Pack. So that's exactly what we did. Frankly, even I wasn't doing the integration. I think it was Taimiki doing that integration, and that was took him like 2 hours or something like that. So that was a very quick port, and since that, I think it's rather stable. So kind of speaks to the nice design of API that RNF has. So.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see where that goes. By the way, in a way that I would love one day for the whole DX of building those mini apps and working with Super App Showcase to be available as a plugin, so that we can have a bespoke prescribed setup for those looking to use Re.Pack in a more advanced way. I think that would be pretty cool. If Mike P is watching us, hopefully maybe he will take a note and surprise us with this feature. I think it would be really cool. And then we have hot updater, which is support for one of the code push successors or replacements. So looks like if you want to do a self-hosted OTAs with Re.Pack, you now have an option. How hard is it generally to do it if you want to use a different provider? Is this a lot of work? And if you're using Re.Pack, should we specifically think about this one, or like what's the situation here with the OTAs?
After a few, I had a chat with the guy behind the hot updater, and actually, in a matter of hours, we managed to create this sort of layer that suits both Metro and Re.Pack, and it wasn't really that hard. In the end, I think the author dropped the separate package for Re.Pack altogether, and just created this baseline with just configuration option between Metro and Re.Pack. So there was literally no need to create a separate abstraction for it. So.
Yeah, interesting. All right. I was trying to pull up a video of that library in the meantime, but something's not loading properly. So what's up next? Very short paragraph, so it's leaving us all excited about the future. The next release is obviously in the works. Looks like the moment you cut the branch, you merge the PR, the next branch is cut. So what are the parallel loaders and within Re.Pack custom loaders? So what is the first one, and and what are the custom loaders we have? Is this for the multi sort of threading or concurrency on the dev build time, or something else?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That will help tremendously with that. It's a feature that RSPack introduced quite a while ago already, and it allows you to create a thread pool for your JS-based loaders, right? So, for example, if you want to transpile something with Babel or transpile something, with other loaders that we have, for example, loader to remove float types, then you can parallelize that work through that. Because as we all know, JS is single-threaded. So if you don't introduce some sort of, abstraction that allows for parallelized work to it, then it's you're gonna get blocked by the lowest, the least performing part of your build pipeline, right?
Yeah.
And in that case, introducing parallel loaders to Re.Pack will kind of make it very similar to how Metro does it, because right now Metro creates this spawns a pool of workers, and they kind of do processing of your code base and node modules with Bubble, but in parallel. That's why Metro is able to achieve such speeds without using any sort of native, enhancements like our RSPack does with SWC, right?
Yeah.
So it will actually, kind of make it a hybrid between the approach from RSPack and approach of Metro. We'll do the most stuff with SWC, which is fast, but for these custom cases, like for example, for reanimated plugin, which is already present in most of the code bases, you'll be able to run the Bubble in a parallelized fashion, so it won't slow your build as much as it does now.
Cool. That makes sense. I mean, that is pretty cool feature to utilize and sort of work around the JS-based loader limitations. So looking forward to it. The speed improvements are already quite massive, but this is looking really good. So a few things at this point, now that we totally by accident see this beautiful banner on the bottom. I think it's a good moment to say that at Callstack, we actually, as creators and maintainers of Re.Pack, we do help companies build super apps with React Native, or use module federation in mobile, or just build cross-platform universal apps with React and React Native. And if you're looking into building using Re.Pack, or maybe you have a super app that is a native app and you're planning to adapt React Native and are researching maybe, or thinking about using super app Re.Pack to build React Native super app, or you're generally interested in getting this adapted for the reasons we mentioned, here is a QR code you can scan in the meantime, and this will lead you directly to the page where you can get in touch with us, and we will give you a POC within a couple of weeks that you can get up and running inside your app, put it into production, and benefit from Re.Pack, which is pretty cool. And we have a lot of cool stuff coming. As you can see, Mike P was watching all the time. That's him from the RNF team. We'll see him on one of the live streams shortly. And the majority, I'm just getting, like, my tongue is really not working at this point. The module federation plugin is on the roadmap and will be implemented, as Mike P is saying. So you will get all the benefits using RNF. If you're using our framework, you'll get that support and all those goodies out of the box. But the takeaway here is that if you are thinking about using Re.Pack, the SQR code is the place to go. We also have a Discord server where you can chat with me, Jakub, and other people on Re.Pack, and that's where we can help you answer your questions. So with that in mind, I will do a final call for questions before we wrap it up. If there is anybody who would like to ask something, feel free. This is the good moment. And in the meantime, I think we can start slowly wrapping up, which means me saying thank you, and Jakub, thank you for joining. And it is the first time we're doing this live stream in this new setup with this fancy UI and so many widgets. I'm like jumping back and forth like crazy, but so far I think it's going pretty good.
Yeah, definitely. That setup is really smooth. Like kudos to Ola who prepared it for us.
Yeah, exactly. Now I do see a purpose for having the StreamYard on the left. This little dial pad where you can just quickly jump between scenes. It's pretty useful. And again, I will repeat this. I always repeat this every time we do the live stream. I was doing lifestyle live streams in my local language before doing this. And I had, like, in my peak time, I had maybe like 4K or 5K people. So I wouldn't say a lot, but quite a few. And one thing I learned over time is the live streams you should really do for like 2, 3, 4 hours, which is the reason why I didn't like them, because they're such a time drainer. but super useful and fun way to interact with people. But I can see by the number of people that are joining us, it's like we started with 20 people and we are growing, and now we're over 200. And I'm 100% sure that if we stayed for another hour, maybe, you know, pulled up a YouTube video of somebody, started drinking coffee, or maybe just doing work and chatting, would easily get to 500, like streaming more. So I have to say we have to stream more, and we just have to do it, you know. that's the thing.
Yeah,
Always
sure.
stream.
Maybe some kind of live demo for the next time, or something. We need to find an objective and actually go through it, right?
Maybe that would be good. You know, I had an idea of doing open source contributions live, but I'm afraid of the skill issue. However, I think your idea is pretty good, and I think generally speaking, a like maybe next time when we have a dedicated time for working on Re.Pack and any sort of open source stuff, we can just roll with it and see, you know, what we do. In case there is any need for a break, we can always pull up this beauty that we also have here. So because you can see, guys, we're like ready and prepared for everything, which is pretty sick. All right. So we don't have much questions, which is fine. In case you want to ask us later, the QR code here is for you to scan and just hit me up. I'm happy to chat with you. I'm Mike on Twitter, GRABBOU, and Jakub is JB Roma, and I think underscore, right? I didn't.
Yep.
Exactly. So
in front of me. Yeah.
So thanks for joining, everybody. Thanks, Jakub, for staying with me and doing this beautiful demo. Congrats on all the
Thanks for having me, Mike. Yeah.
So thank you, guys.
That really went fast. Yeah.
Yeah, it went really fast and could go even longer, but it's 1 a.m. in Hong Kong, and I should probably get some sleep. So
kudos for making it this far. So yeah.
Oh, thank you. I can't help myself. I love this. So I will say thank you, guys, and till the next time.
Yeah. See ya.